lion would never play golf, but a tiger would. Oh my goodness. Welcome to the GB Gaming Podcast. This is for the 28th of May 2021. I'm Dave, talking to you on GB Gaming, where video games come first. And I know I didn't upload an episode of the podcast within the last week or so. To be honest, I didn't really have much to talk about. I had a few things to talk about, but the problem is that it only took up 45 minutes, and it was mostly useless news that wasn't worth talking about, not for that length of time. So I said, you know what, I'm going to leave it and delete it and just wait until meaningful content is available for me to talk about, and that I've got stuff to talk about for myself as well. And I've actually got a few things that I'd like to talk about today. And the reason why I'm doing it on Friday is because things happened this week that I was eager to talk about. I did not want to leave it until Sunday. I wanted to talk about it today. So let's get on with it. It's been quite a week, actually. The weather here has been up and down. Don't know why I'm talking about the fucking weather, but this is how I start small talk with people in general. So it's habit to do it on this, I suppose, even though I've never done it. So it's not a habit, but whatever. The weather's been shit. I've been getting soaked, like literally drowned. So I usually cycle to work, and when I do, I take certain routes. But there was one day last week where my boss needed me to come to her office, and she wanted me to get there an hour early before, so that I can start work when I'm finished. And so on the way there, it was really wet. I mean, it was borderline torrential rain, at least for this country, Ireland. So it was really wet, and I did not prepare for it. Normally when it's this kind of weather, I'll usually get a taxi, but I feel like if it's going to be raining like this all week, there's no point in me getting a taxi every day. That's €50 out of my pocket by the end of the week, and that is not worth it. Not when the place I'm working in is, even though it's like a 5-10 minute drive, it's only 25 minutes on the bicycle at the very latest, so it wasn't that big a deal. But anyway, so I'm cycling to work. It's really, really wet, and it gets to the point where it's so wet that my black jeans that I'm wearing is now turned shiny. Like, I could squeeze it and water would like drain out of it. So I'm soaked. Even taking shelter was pointless at that point, so I just kept cycling. And by the time I got to my boss's office, she looked at me with disdain in her eyes, because I'll give you a brief description of what my boss is like. She's an older woman. She's in her 60s, late 60s. So she's got a mammy's personality as well, because she's got a daughter and a son, I think. She's at least got a daughter. And she's got a very mother-like personality, so she'll always talk to you like she's talking to a child, and she probably doesn't even realise she's doing it, but she took one look at me and she just went full-blown mammy mode. She shouted at me for cycling in the rain. She lambasted me for allowing myself to get as wet as I did. She also lambasted me for not buying rain gear. And I said, I did not think of it. And she's like, well, you need to start thinking of it. So what she done was that she dragged me into the garage where she stores all of her cleaning supplies. She grabbed a rain jacket and a pair of rain trousers, or like, a wetsuit basically. It's not a wetsuit, but it's like a waterproof pair of trousers and a waterproof jacket. So she threw those at me and she said, do not let me catch you going out in that rain ever again without this on. So she made me promise to wear it. So I wear this stupid rain jacket and these stupid trousers whenever it starts to rain, and for the most part it works. It really does work. But there was a situation where, so I obviously have to own up to that promise. She says, you better wear it. She says, oh well, you can follow me home, you know where I go. So I'll prove it to you. So I had to live up to this promise, this fucking jacket. So I put on the jacket on the way home from work, and I put on the trousers. And then I end up cycling home, and by the time I got home, my fiance opened. I got in the door, I got in the living room, and my fiance's sitting there, and she looks at me, and she starts to laugh. I said, "What? What are you laughing at?" And she said, "You." She said, "I can't even get the words out." I said, "What are you laughing at?" She goes, "It's not even that funny." But she said, "You you look like..." Okay, get to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. I said, "Why are you laughing at me?" She says, "Look at the state of you, Dave." I said, "What?" She said, She said, "You fuck you." Right, I said, "What?" She goes, "You look like Paddington Bear." She said, "You look like Paddington Bear." And just, if you don't know who Paddington Bear is, if you're young enough, just Google him. Just look him up. That's basically a general idea of what I look like. And it was the jacket's fault. It was the jacket's fault because this thing was obviously not for my size. I am only 5'5", so this jacket was a fucking massive. It was ridiculous looking. It went all the way down to my ankles, and to make it worse, not ankles, my knee, but to make it worse, it had coattails. This jacket has coattails, so I looked ridiculous. Honestly, I looked like a fucking fisherman. I looked ridiculous. So now I'm not wearing the jacket, but I do wear the trousers if it's raining. Because I don't mind the jacket that I'm wearing currently getting wet, because I only wear it when I'm cycling. I don't wear it in the house, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, she said I look like Paddington Bear, and it just, I hadn't laughed like that in a long time. Oh man, yeah. My bike is actually starting to fucking squeak and make noises and do stupid shit that I've never heard before. It was cheap. The bike only cost me about €200, and that's really cheap for a bicycle, because even though it does the job, gets you from A to B, and that's all I want, but it's made with cheap parts. It's made with cheap parts, and I'm starting to see the results of that. No, the tyres are going down, but that's normal. I just need to buy a bike pump. The brakes are just, what's the word I'm looking for? They're just miscalibrating themselves. Like, it's quite dangerous as well when, like, if I don't get the brakes working properly, I'm fucked. But I was basically being very risky the last 2 weeks or so because okay, for those of you who don't cycle or don't know anything about bikes, I'll explain very, very briefly what these... You've probably cycled a bike at one point, so I'm probably being an idiot here, but there's two brakes. The one on the left controls the rear brake, and the one on the right controls the front brake. Now, the general rule is, at least when you are cycling on busy streets with traffic, is... I suppose in any given situation, basically, but the general rule is when you pull the left brake, you're supposed to pull the left brake first. Because the left brake, the rear brake's job, is to gradually bring your bike down to a stop. It's to slow you down. And then by the time you've slowed down enough, you pull the right brake, the front brake, to put yourself to a stop. So it's instant. So it's like a gradual. So you gradually pull the left brake, and then when you're slow enough, pull the right brake, and you're stopped. That's the general rule when it comes to stopping the bike. And I've done that for the most part, but the last 2 weeks or so, the rear brake just was too loose. it wasn't working. So I had no left brake. I had no rear brake to use. So I was forced to use the right brake. Now, I don't use the right brake that often, and there's a very good fucking reason for that. The front brake squeaks really, really loud. It squeaks so loud, it's like a banshee coming down the street. I've already told this story to friends and family, and every time I tell them, they laugh. They laugh really hard because they would hate to be in that position where it's a busy street. I live in a town centre, basically. I live right next to a city centre, and it's always busy, especially now that all the shops and stores have started opening again. Places are starting to be busier. Streets are starting to be busier. People are starting to crowd the pedestrian, the pavements. So when they, oh, it's so embarrassing when this banshee just screams down. But I suppose at the very end of the day, at least I'm being safe, but not that fucking safe. And I swear, I often use the roads when I'm cycling because the flow of traffic is easier to cycle with instead of unpredictable pedestrians. So naturally that means I have to follow the rules of the road, and I try my best. Stopping at lights, maintaining my own lane, allowing cars to overtake me, the usual. But I've learned a lot within the last 8 months or so, and I've gotten so confident on the road that I've noticed some drivers, whom I can only assume have been driving most of their lives, they really baffle me when they do stupid things that they know they're doing. And this happened during the week. Now, what happened was I was cycling to work and I got to a roundabout. And the general rule of a roundabout, if you live in an area that doesn't have them, I mean, I know, I'm not saying they're new in America, but they're not very common. Especially in cities like New York, for example, or places in Florida where the roads are basically like a grid, so there is no roundabout. I digress. So I'm at this roundabout, and the general rule, or the law, in fact, is you have to allow the cars that are coming on the right of the roundabout or from the second exit. If they're coming towards you, you have to give way. That's the rule. You have to give way to the right. You cannot give way to the left. And you can see where I'm going with this. Well, I got to the roundabout and a car was coming from the right. So I have to give way. So I stopped. And what did he do? He drove his car until he was on the roundabout. By the time you're on the roundabout, you're committed. You have to go a direction. You have to go. You can't stop. But he stopped dead on the roundabout. Why? To wave me on. He stopped at the roundabout to let me go. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you telling me to go? So my first reaction is, like, now I'm wearing a helmet so you can see me shaking. I shook my head and I went, no. So I waved him on. I'm like, fucking go. Now, he eventually obliged and continued on his way. He didn't wave. He didn't even look at me. He just ignored me and kept going, right? That whatever. But what I'd noticed is that when he told me to go, the car behind me, now I'm in front, like, obviously. The car behind me, once he noticed that the guy was telling me to go, the guy behind me revved his engine and drove forward a bit, as if to say, okay, go. He was allowing this to happen. It just baffled me. Like, it's like, why would you... Oh, I don't know. And this is one of the reasons why I will not drive a car. Driving a car is terrifying for me. I've only ever been... The decision was made when I was in my mid-20s. See, I had an idea growing up, maybe I might drive a car, but this decision was finalised. I was in a small collision there a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, and the car, we were coming out of a junction, and a T-junction, and it was the driver's fault that of the car I was in. They were at fault. It's not, it happens, mistakes happen, but we were turning right, and a car coming from the left just. She did, obviously the person that was driving the car I was in didn't see the person on the left for whatever reason. I don't know how. It was a big family car, but I digress. Rammed into the side, my side, and the car I was in spun well over 360 degrees. It spun and went up a small incline at the entrance to a bank, and I was shook. No injuries. It wasn't that bad a collision in retrospect. You know, looking at it in hindsight, it wasn't that bad a collision. It was just a clumsy crash into the left side of the car, which it just so happened that it made the car spin. But I was not injured. The person I was in the car with was not injured. The person that drove into us was not injured. But I was shook. I was like mildly traumatized. I've never been in a situation like that before. I got a fright, like, you know, I got a big bad fright, and I took off. I went right, I'll see you later, I'm going to work. I went to work. I was in college at the time, so I just went off, and I had a bad day. I had a bad day just thinking about that, because I kept thinking about how that could have been so much worse. That might not have been a person driving a six seater or whatever, 7-seater. That could have been someone driving a faster car. That could have been a younger person driving like an idiot. That could have been so much worse. That could have been a lorry. It could have been a van. And that's all I kept thinking about. So I've got this habit now when I'm sitting in the passenger seat of a car, is whenever we get to a junction or a roundabout or anything like that, I will freeze. I will shit myself, because I'm too terrified to see what cars are coming on the left. That so much so that, like, God help my fucking fiance who has to listen to me do this, but every single time we come to a junction now, I've got a habit of tapping her leg and going, watch, careful. And I know I shouldn't do that, because that's me distracting the driver, especially at a junction or a roundabout, which you should not do. But yeah. She gets annoyed at that now. But she's trying to tell me to calm down, but I can't help but panic. So I've made the decision to never get in a car. And for some strange reason, that bothers people. Not the fact that I'm scared of junctions and scared of it in general. It's just the fact that the idea that I will not drive a car. And that segues into a trivial issue that I've had for a good few years now. It's like, people can be really nosy and very interested in the things you do or don't do, and they somehow find it their business to vicariously live through you. Like, made even worse when the thing you want to do is something they haven't done or can't do for whatever reason. And the biggest outlier for me in this is driving cars and having kids. And both of those bother me. The driving one bothers me because, like, why? It's like, why do you get annoyed when I tell you I'm not interested? This is more aimed at colleagues and family members, but I've seen people have the same general opinion on message boards. It's like, if I tell them I'm not going to drive, they tell me I'm lazy. Or they tell me that I'm not motivated, or something stupid like that. Or the worst one is, do you drive? No, I'm not interested in driving. You have to drive. Why do I have to drive? I don't want to drive. I just don't. And the same goes with when people tell you to have kids. It's a question, or should I say a request or a demand, that I've been dealing with for a number of years now. And I find it, I just think that never assume, do not presume or assume, or whatever the word is I'm looking for. Do not just automatically think that every person in the world is capable of having kids for whatever reason. You just cannot say that people are capable of having kids these days. We live in a world where we have to be careful with what they say, and most of the shit I agree with, and most of it I don't agree with. There's a lot of things that I do agree with being quote unquote woke about, but but there's so many things that You just have no right to judge on who can and can't do it. For example, the kids thing. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't like it when people tell me what to do in my life because society expects it of me. Like, to you, the person who thinks I should have kids and who thinks I should drive, what benefit to society and what benefit to you would it be for me to do either of those things? Getting a job, I understand, We need to do that to survive, to contribute to society financially. We're all working together in that aspect. That's how taxes work and all that shit, I think. I don't know. We pay taxes to help other services work. It's lucrative, it works. I don't know the gist of it all or the insides of it, but I know that everyone working helps everyone else, right? I understand that, but why do I have to drive a car? I have had people get annoyed at me that I don't drive, call me lazy, and likewise I've had people call me selfish for not wanting children. How am I selfish? To whom's expense is it for me to choose not to have kids? Is it your expense? Because if it's your expense, you have a lot of problems, or you don't have a lot of problems. And the whole you'll change your mind argument as well. I will not have children as an insurance policy on how I'll feel years down the line on the idea of having kids in the first place. Long story short, it's nobody else's business. If you're someone who's under pressure from those expectations from complete strangers, just remember that that's all they are, strangers. They'll forget about you in an hour. But never just assume that someone can have kids. Never assume that. Because not a lot of people can. For various health reasons, or for financial reasons, or for, situations with their jobs or whatnot, you know what I mean? You can't just assume that someone is capable of having kids just because, there's people out there who can't have kids for medical reasons, for reasons that you just cannot help from a physical perspective. You might not possess the physical ability to have kids anymore or ever. And then there's people that say, why don't you adopt? Okay, hear me out. There are people out there who do not possess the financial capabilities to manage a child. There are people who don't possess the emotional abilities to handle a child. People who work, a couple who might work all day, every day. That's the way their life is. You can't just jump in on people's lives and just say, have kids. Because now you're asking them to change their life entirely from what it already is. You do not have a right to do that. Do not do that to people. And if you are someone who gets that, don't listen to them. Do your own thing. If you think it makes if they think it makes you selfish, then you're selfish. So be it. But at whose expense? You're not going to have people walk out of your life because you won't have kids, so don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it, but I am annoyed at it. Anyway, that's enough negativity and whinging on my part. Let's talk about some positive things. Me and my fiancée, myself and my fiancée and I, my wife and I, me and her, I and her, sorry. We've been watching a lot of animated movies lately, and we've been mostly Disney properties, and we've also chopped and changed from Disney to other animated films as well, and it made me think. I've got a lot of favourite animated films that are not Disney properties, and it's interesting because I grew up on Disney, but I grew up on other films as well that people may or may not know about. Disney, people, a lot of people will look at old classic Disney movies, especially the Renaissance period, and think that they cannot be touched. I disagree. I think there's a lot of films that came out around this time that are not Disney properties that are either as good or, God forbid, sometimes better. And I've got a few films in mind that I really enjoy. So these are my favourite non-Disney animated movies. So, like I said, we've been watching a lot of animated films lately over the last few weeks, and most of them have all been on Disney Plus, since now that films owned by Fox are showing up on that platform as well. But these are the films that I have a lot of time for, particularly Don Bluth properties. And that includes The Land Before Time, American Tail, and I suppose American Tail 5 Will Goes West if you want to include that. It's not as good, but it's fine. The Secret of Nim and Anastasia. I love Anastasia. I don't know why I like it so much. You know, on its surface, it's very girly. It's a very girly film, very princessy film, but the story is actually really good. It's a really good story. There's two plots that are going on. There's the plot of Anastasia looking for family members in another country. That's the interesting story. But then there's another story attached to that where this evil sorcerer is trying to kill her, and it's shite. I don't really like that part of the story at all. But if you've never seen Anastasia, I'd say watch it. It's loosely based on true events, but it takes a lot of liberties with... In fact, it's probably true right up until the end of the first quarter of the film. Because after that, it's like all bets are off, just do what you like. But it's loosely based on events that may or may not have happened around that time. I'm not going to tell you exactly what. That's what the internet is for. But Secret of Nim is a film that I've only seen maybe 3 times in my life. First discovered it when I was in school, in second year I think, where we were reading the book Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim. And after we read the book, the teacher brought in the videotape of The Secret of Nim, which is basically the same story in movie form, directed by Don Bluth, I think, and it's really good. It's really, really good. But I think Don Bluth movies reached their peak with The Land Before Time or American Tail, one of those two films. Those were two of my favourite films growing up. And they're all Don Bluth movies. So it goes to show that it's quite funny though. I do really like those movies, but they're made by Don Bluth, who used to work for Disney. So there's a lot of inspirations there, but he takes a lot of liberties with these films as well. They're a lot darker. They're a lot more serious in tone compared to a lot of Disney films. And I think I prefer that approach. I prefer animated films that, even though kids can watch them, there's something in there for the adults as well. You know, it can get serious. And one of the best animated films I've seen in my whole life that are not Disney is The Prince of Egypt. Now, I first seen that when it came out in the cinema back in 1999, I want to say. And that film is just astounding. The way it's animated, the voice acting, the characters themselves, the visual effects, the music. Oh God, the music in that film is outstanding. Like, it's one of DreamWorks' best films. They'd never made that many good films since. I mean, yeah, they made Shrek. Say what you want about that. I like Shrek because I like toilet humour, but The Prince of Egypt is top quality stuff. You know, if you're into like, you don't need to be a religious person to appreciate a film like this, because it is based on the biblical figure Moses, and we've already had the 10 Commandments on 2 occasions back in the 30s, 40s and 50s, or whenever it was they came out. But this is probably, there have been movies based on this story since, but they haven't held a candle to The Prince of Egypt. Probably the best animated biblical film ever made, if there's any more. Such a good film, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But yeah, my point is, there's a lot of animated movies out there that they don't have to be Disney to be any good, and that's a shame, because a lot of people expect Disney to be the one that makes good animated films, and I think that's wrong. I think that's very wrong, because, I mean, look at All Dogs Go to Heaven. That's a brilliant film as well. A lot of content cut, which is interesting. I would have liked to have seen them put back in, but who knows. But that's a really good film. Again, Don Bluth. You know, there's a pattern involving here. It's just a shame that any sequels that came out from these films, they have been subpar to rubbish. I mean, look at The Land Before Time. That thing ended up being a media monster. Now, not because of like financial income or anything like that, or like nothing like that. Quality, no. Quantity, yes. There's like 14 of those films or more. There are so many Land Before Time films, it's ridiculous. I mean, how many are there? Land Before Time. The first one is, ironically, timeless. I love it. A Land Before Time is an American children's franchise of animated adventure films by Universal Pictures centred on dinosaurs. That'll explain why it's not on Disney Plus, but I digress. The latest one came out in 2016, but that had been the longest time they waited before making a sequel, because the last one that came before that was 9 years. So we had The Land Before Time in 1988, and then from 1994 onwards there was a new Land Before Time arguably every year. There was The Great Valley Adventure, which is 1994, The Time of the Great Giving, which is 1995, Journey Through the Mists was in 1996, 1997 saw The Mysterious Island get released, the following year was The Secret of Sora's Rock, then The Stone of Cold Fire, which was 2000, The Big Freeze in 2001, Journey to Big Water in 2002, The Great Long Neck Migration in 2003, Invasion of the Tiny Sauruses in 2005, The Great Day of the Flyers in 2006, and The Wisdom of Friends in 2007. And then 9 years later they released Journey to the Brave. And as a result, there have been 14 films in that series. That is ridiculous. There's also been a video game here or there as well, like, no, not that much well known. They've mostly been on PC, but there was a Land Before Time racing game on PlayStation, and another one on PlayStation in 2002, 2003. It's like, you know, your game is rubbish when it's already bad to begin with, but you also release it in 2002, 2003. That means you're looking for a quick cash in on a property on a console that is irrelevant at that point, because the PS2 had already been out for 3 years. I am going way off topic. Basically, what I'm saying is that I have a lot of time for Don Bluth movies and pretty much a lot of films that are non-Disney. And I think they're good. Moving on. Okay, as I do this podcast, I was going to wait until the afternoon to do this, but I don't know how I'm going to feel after it. And what I mean by that is, it's currently 8:40 AM. So at 2 o'clock today, or 1:30, or 2:30, I am getting my vaccine. One of two of them, thank God. I'm expecting to be down for the count the following day, but who knows? I might be alright, but I'm hearing reports of people feeling really sick for at least a whole day after receiving the vaccine. And my immune system is generally good. I mean, the worst I get is a cold and a sore throat. But since I've been wearing a mask for the past year and a half, I've been lucky to not be sick for more than once in a year. Since my day job involves cleaning and sanitising schools, it's typically 3 to 4 times in a year I'll get sick. But so if I end up sick over the weekend, then I'll know it was the vaccine that caused it. But on the flip side, it's a stepping stone to normality. I cannot wait to not need to worry about catching this virus for the foreseeable future. I really can't. Like, I need normality again, and it's getting ridiculous now. I mean, things in this country have started to open up again, but how long will that last? We need to wait until summer happens, and then by the time summer ends, what will happen? I don't know if I could handle a second lockdown, to be honest. in Ireland, we've had 2 major lockdowns. We had one when the virus started, and then we had one just after New Year. And I don't know if I could handle it a third time, especially now I've got a wedding coming up, do you know? I know that sounds selfish of me, but everyone has their own problems, that everyone has their own things. Do you know, my thing is my wedding. You know, I've been looking forward to this since the day I proposed, but like we've been making plans, finding out it's costing us an arm and a leg. In our lives, it's an arm and a leg anyway. It's a lot of money, so we're stressing really hard about it. And I'm only doing part-time work at the minute, and she's doing full-time work, and it's really getting to her physically because she's got all sorts of shit. Like, she shouldn't be having at the age of 29, I'll say that much, but she's getting there, she's getting by, but I don't want to be the one that... I'm fully capable of doing a lot of work, and I can't do it because I'm only stuck doing part-time and I'm on a contract, so I can't do anything about it. I digress. I'm turning a positive into a negative again. But yeah, getting the vaccine today. And I'm deciding to do this podcast now, just in case I get any effects after it, and it will make me not in the mood to do the podcast. Yeah, right. I know it's been half an hour, and I apologise. But this is my podcast. I will do what I want on it. If I have to put timestamps on it, I will. I need to start doing that, actually, timestamps. But that involves skimming through the entire episode, waiting on the parts where I stop talking about one thing and moving on to the next. That's a very difficult thing to do. Anyway, let's get on to what this podcast should be about. And that is video games. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I like it. It's good. I'm enjoying it. I platinumed Mass Effect 1. Bought the Legendary Edition out of nowhere, really. It came at a point where, after beating Days Gone, followed by Concrete Genie, which I played just before playing Mass Effect, actually. I beat that last week. Just a brief opinion on Concrete Genie, actually, before I go back into Mass Effect. Beautiful visuals, surprisingly serious at times. The B story of the game centres around the main character being harassed by bullies, and once they make contact with the paintbrush you're carrying, which is like, okay, let me explain what Concrete Genie is very, very briefly. Okay, it's a compact open world game where you play as this young boy who has this magic paintbrush, and what this paintbrush does is it creates little creatures known as genies, and you, the player, can create them to your own design, and they will follow you around the game and like help you solve puzzles and whatnot. And the story of the game basically is some dark force has shrouded this town, and your job is to basically use your magic paintbrush to wisp them away, basically. That's what Concrete Genie's story is on a basic level. It's only 5 or 6 hours. It's not long at all. That's the A story of the game. The B story is, the subplot basically is the boy gets harassed by these bullies who are recurring throughout the game, and once they make contact, like, there's a point where they will find out that you've got this paintbrush, and they will all individually try and take it away from you. And there's a point in the game where once they try and take the paintbrush from you, once they make contact with that paintbrush, they get a flashback of their past lives, and each one of them have a dark past, and it's supposed to say these people have a dark past and that's why they bully you. They bully you to hide the pain of their past or whatnot. And yeah, so the character backstories are quite dark, but it explains their behaviour. It's a bite-sized game with a lot of character. My favourite feature was obviously creating my own genie and using the paintbrush to design my own graffiti and whatnot. It's one of the very few PS4 games to take advantage of the DualShock 4's motion sensor, which is used to control the paintbrush when creating the designs and the genies. And I'm hoping they develop a follow-up, because I can see a lot of potential with this game as a series if it becomes one. And there's features that I would like to see if a series follow-up, or whatever, if a follow-up was to happen. Obviously a bigger world, more paintbrush options, like maybe the ability to physically draw the shape of your own genie instead of preset ones. You kind of have you have a lot of creativity when designing a genie, but there's only so much you can do. I would like to physically draw, as if I'm drawing it on a piece of paper. I would like to physically draw my own shape. And it would be nice to have multiplayer as well. That game would be really good for co-op, and I'm surprised that the first game didn't have it. The game's also available on PlayStation VR, but obviously since I don't have VR, I can't possibly give an opinion on that. And after I beat Concrete Genie, I tried to play The Goddamn Witness. If you haven't played The Witness, it's a pretentious puzzle game. That's what I'm going to call it, because that's what it is. I played The Witness for about 2 hours before putting it down, because I didn't like it. It comes across as a bit of a hi-hat. Like I said, it's pretentious. Like, you're not really taught how to solve some of the puzzles, not even when it's your first time encountering one. The game just drops you into this world with no direction and says, figure it out. I am not a fan of games that do that. Now, I understand there are plenty of open-ended games out there that behave in a similar manner, like Breath of the Wild or No Man's Sky, or to an extent, Fallout 3 or Oblivion, where it'll give you a brief synopsis on what the idea of the story is, a brief synopsis, but it'll take the shackles off of you and then say, figure it out. But it's not as obtuse as that, you know? Like, those games will still give time to the player if they're stuck. The Witness gives you absolutely nothing. It's unnecessarily frustrating. Like, I thought it would be a fun, challenging puzzle game. And it is challenging, but what it is nothing more than a game that thinks it's better than other puzzle games. That's the impression I got from it. Jonathan Blow, the creator of the game, really disappointed me with The Witness, though I shouldn't really feel surprised, because his first game, Braid, was not my cup of tea either. This is only arguably his second proper game, and it comes across as stuck up. That I notice people do like it, but Colin Moriarty said it best. Now, like I said, I was talking about this last week, The Witness. I was doing a podcast last week and I didn't finish it, so I'm bringing topics from that to this one. So technically, I brought this up before Colin Moriarty said it, but it was like, of course, yes, I believe the same thing. Colin Moriarty, who is the owner of Last Stand Media, did a podcast this week where he said the very same thing about The Witness. He says he doesn't like The Witness because he doesn't like games that make the player feel stupid, and I fully agree with that. Fully agree with it. But anyway, back to Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So I got it out of nowhere after beating Days Gone, followed by Concrete Genie, and being put off by The Witness. I was struggling to find what to play next, and I was in the mood to play an RPG. And luckily for me, Mass Effect was only being released the following day at this point. So I preloaded it, and that's what I've been playing since that day, since release. And obviously, I started with Mass Effect 1, and it played pretty well. I was trying to retrain muscle memory at the time by unlearning habits from other games. Like, holding X to run is an odd one for me, despite the fact I should be used to it from being a massive Gears of War fan, where holding the X button, or A button in this case, to roadie run is as common as firing a gun, so you can't not use it. But other oddball buttons for me are pressing square to throw a grenade. Guns typically reload themselves in the original Mass Effect, but I kept forgetting this. and my first instinct after firing a weapon is to press the square button to reload. And I can't count how many times I did this, thinking that it would reload the gun, but threw a grenade instead. There's a few performance issues I'm having with it as a whole, particularly on PlayStation 4 Pro, where whenever the game starts to get a little busy, not only does the frame rate drop quite a bit, but there's also occasional stuttering. Those are not that bad in my books. I can handle that. Being a console gamer, this is nothing new to me. My biggest issue is, whenever I play the game in performance mode, which is the mode that focuses on providing a higher frame rate, usually 60 frames per second, there's a massive amount of screen tearing, more prominent during, as I said, busy scenes, and so far, nothing has been more busy than exploring the Citadel in Mass Effect 1, which is basically the game's central hub. So I'd be spending a lot of time here away from missions, and it's borderline unplayable. Like, it wasn't too bad when you're in areas that isn't cram-packed full of characters and moving objects, but when you're in gunfights, it's very noticeable, especially on Eden Prime, which is the first planet you start the game on. Sorry. The first planet you start the game on, and the Citadel. Now, I'm on Mass Effect 2, and I don't play it in performance mode anymore. I play it in quality mode, for a very specific reason that I will get to in just a moment. In fact, let's do it now. I got a new TV. Oh my god, I got a new TV, and it's lovely. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Obviously it's 4K. It's the first 4K TV I've ever owned. Now, we have a 4K TV in the living room, but that's my fiance's TV. That's hers. That's for living room viewing, 40 inches, Samsung, does the job. And I've used it before and I liked it. But I've got very specific, I'm not going to say standards. I think that's a really gross word to use. I don't have standards. I just have preferences. And after experiencing the 4K TV that we have downstairs, there were things about it that I didn't particularly like. The TV had a lot of ghosting on it. When you're watching something on this TV or playing a video game and you see something move really fast, it leaves a trail behind them, like a ghost, like motion blur. And I wanted to avoid that when buying this TV that I currently have, and so far it's doing the job very well. I absolutely love it. It's got a great contrast ratio. The blacks are actually black. Now, I've heard people say that so many times over the years with their TVs, and I just didn't really understand what it was they meant. I did know what they mean, but I could not picture it, because I've been dealing with the same TVs my whole life, so I didn't really notice anything like that. But this one, oh my god, the colours, the sharpness, the blacks, the HDR is done brilliantly. It's a wonderful TV, and I hope I don't see anything that I get sick of with it. I hope nothing happens that'll degrade my experience with it, because right now I absolutely love it. Definitely the best TV I've ever owned. Yeah, I like it. Okay, I'm done. I'm done talking about the TV. Okay, move on to the next news story. It looks like TimeSplitters is making a comeback. Yes, that's right, the same game that was released on the PS2 all those years ago that spawned 2 sequels and nothing else ever since. It's coming back, and I can't wait. Deep Silver posted this on Twitter on the 20th of May. They said, "You asked, and we listened. We have been working on plans to bring the TimeSplitters franchise back to life, and are pleased to let you know that we are setting up a new Deep Silver development studio to do just that. Free Radical Design is reforming and will be headed up by industry and TimeSplitters veterans Steve Ellis and David Doak. This is an exciting first step in the process. Development on a new game has not yet started, and we will update you when we have more news to share." Many of you might not know this, but TimeSplitters was the first-person shooter that I played and actually enjoyed. Before that, I didn't really like the genre. I had only played the original Doom on PS1 and Star Wars Dark Forces, and I had also played games like Medal of Honor, Frontline, and even the original Medal of Honor. So first-person shooter games, not my cup of tea. But I had discovered TimeSplitters. If you've already seen my TimeSplitters review, you already know. But basically, I discovered TimeSplitters randomly. And in retrospect, I can see why people enjoyed it. It was basically PlayStation's answer to GoldenEye. Because GoldenEye was a big hit on the Nintendo 64, as well as Perfect Dark, which is like a spiritual successor to 007. And TimeSplitters is basically a spiritual successor to those games, without being any way related apart from general gameplay. And they play very similar. And TimeSplitters was phenomenal. I missed out on TimeSplitters 2 because there was things about it that I didn't really like. But that doesn't really matter now because I've played it since and I do enjoy it. But TimeSplitters 3 was where it peaked in my books. I thought that game was absolutely fantastic. But I don't know what it is they're planning on doing, but I would love to see them not only make a new TimeSplitters in the form of TimeSplitters 4, but I would also like to see the trilogy come back in some sort of remastered package. I've got TimeSplitters 1, 2 and 3 on PS2, but it would be great to play those games with a fresh coat of paint, like 4K resolution. I feel like I could say that now, 4K. Sorry, I'm on 4K fever now. I haven't had a 4K TV for myself. Yeah, I digress. 4K resolution would be great, HDR, all that jazz. Just even if it's just a remaster, the same assets, everything doesn't matter. I would love to play those games again in a modern console. So whether that happens or not, I don't know, but I am excited that TimeSplitters is making a resurgence. Finally. And I'm delighted that it's Free Radical Design again. So delighted. They know. Well done, Deep Silver. Well done. So a few other boring pieces of news. Well, it's boring for me. I'm not really interested, but I'm pretty sure you can agree on this, that in the last 2 weeks, Nintendo released a calculator application on the Nintendo Switch, and it costs $8.99. Why? Lads, come on. It's already created a storm of memes and jokes across the internet. I mean, who's this made for? I'd love to see the sales figures of this after a few months. The fact that it costs a ridiculous €9 is what's making me laugh the most. Not the fact that there's a calculator app on the Switch eShop. There's a lot of shovelware on that system. Just the fact that it's €9 and it's purchasable. It's a calculator app. Who's it for? I just think that's funny. I also heard that I'm moving away from the calculator story, that's ridiculous. I've also heard that Ubisoft are planning to drop, now this is news that's about 2 weeks old, so I know I'm late in saying this, but Ubisoft are planning to drop AAA games development in favour of free-to-play titles. From a business money-making perspective, I can see the sense in this. However, it begs the question, how long will it be before other major companies do this, before the next 10 years pass? Like in that time, is this how we're going to start playing games? What if this becomes the new AAA game? And that's what the headline for an article from GameIndustry.biz said as well. Like, it's not just me that said that. I'm not going to read the whole article, I'm just going to read the headline. It says, Ubisoft's free-to-play turn could be the new normal for big franchises. Ending failed attempts to mix free-to-play systems into premium games and instead making separate, high-quality titles for major IP is a winning strategy. Aye, from a financial point of view, from a business sense, but from a consumer standpoint, I really don't know how this could be any way benefit. Nevertheless, AAA games are getting more and more disappointing when they release. So, who am I? Who am I? And now we come to the topic of the episode, and one that I've been dying to talk about all morning because I watched the preview last night, and I'm specifically talking about the 30th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog and the live stream that they released yesterday. And I'm quite excited for the projects that they are coming up with. So I'm going to start with the smaller things first. There's a new animation show coming out called Sonic Colors Rise of the Wisps. And this was announced as a promotion for Sonic Colors Ultimate, which was the big remaster of Sonic Colors, which was once exclusive to the, I want to say, the Nintendo Wii? Basically a remaster of that version finally coming to PS4, PS5, Xbox and whatnot. So anyone who didn't have a Wii growing up and somehow missed out on this will now get to play it. And I'm quite excited about it because people said that that is one of the good ones that came out. So the fact that it didn't come to other consoles baffled me, but now that I know that it's coming out on modern consoles, I will finally get a chance to try it out. Now, I have a Wii, but I don't actively use it for any Wii games in general. I use it for homebrewing and whatnot. I digress. A couple of comic books were actually announced as well, but I don't know if they were announced on the actual show itself because I'm looking it up on the Sonic wiki page itself. Now, 3 comic books are being released, and one of them is called the Sonic the Hedgehog 30th Anniversary Celebration Deluxe Edition, the Sonic the Hedgehog Free Comic Book Day 2021, which is a first issue, I think, also celebrating the 30th anniversary, and there's another one doing the same thing. So, like, there's a lot of products being released here and coming out, and there's a lot of merch. There's a Sonic the Hedgehog encyclopedia called the Sonic the Hedgehog Encyclopedia. Get it? Encyclopedia. And the solicitation here says, Celebrate Sonic the Hedgehog's 30th anniversary with a full colour, hardcover historical retrospective that explores nearly every one of the Blue Speedster's video game appearances. Dive deep into the extensive lore and exhaustive detail of each game in Sonic's ever-expanding universe, from the beloved Sega Genesis to the most bleeding-edge video game consoles. This tome leaves no stone unturned, showcasing in-depth look at characters, settings and stories from each exciting instalment. Dark Horse Books and Sega present the Sonic the Hedgehog Encyclopedia, a must-have volume for any fan of Sonic, young and old. It's releasing on the 23rd of November 2021. It's going to cost $49.99. And I think I might grab this because I am a big fan of the original Sonic games, but I would also be interested. I'm interested in the history of Sonic the Hedgehog, not necessarily the games that have actually came out in the last 20 years, but I am a fan of the character, I'm a fan of the product, I am a fan of the IP of Sonic the Hedgehog as a whole. And I would very much like to have this in my collection at the end of the year, so that might be a pickup for me, the Encyclopedia. New pop vinyl figures by Funko being made, new toys by Jakks Pacific, a new jewellery collection by King Ice, apparel, clothes, accessories by Graph Gaming. There's enamel pins being created by Fig Pin Incorporated, new G Fuel energy drinks, Sonic themed, new Sonic posters, plush toys, cake decorations. You know, there's so many things they're making here that are not games. But here are the games that they've announced. I've already mentioned Sonic Colors Ultimate. It's a remaster of the Wii game that came out back in the day. It's finally come to PS4, PS5, Xbox One and Xbox Series. There's also a new Sonic Dash update that's coming out, I think. I don't know much about Sonic Dash, so I couldn't possibly give an opinion on it. But there's a new update for that coming out for the 30th anniversary. There's also Sonic Forces Speed Battle. They're doing something with that as well. They're bringing in Shadow the Hedgehog, I think. I'm not sure. Sonic Origins grabbed my attention. And it's basically a package that contains Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic CD, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Probably the first time that Sonic 3 and Knuckles has been shoved into a compilation in a long time. Unfortunately, it's an emulated version of the game. So, because, like, in case you didn't notice, Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 will be coming out, and Sonic CD will be coming out on this package with widescreen support, similar to what was on the mobile versions of the games. And I've been clamouring for those versions of the games to come to consoles for a long time now, so I'm delighted to see them come out. And unfortunately, Sonic 3 and Knuckles will maintain the original 16-bit aesthetic with the 4:3 ratio. That is not getting any touch-up whatsoever as far as I'm aware. But it doesn't matter. I'm happy to get this collection. This is definitely a collection that suits people my age. I'm really excited about it. So the Sonic Origins is what stood out to me the most out of this whole presentation. They also announced a classic Sonic and Green Hill Zone event for Sonic Racing on mobile. Again, a game I'm not really interested in, but for those that are into it, I'm happy that you get a new piece of content for that game. And then what should be the creme de la creme of this promotional video is a new Sonic game that has been developed exclusively, well, not exclusively, for modern consoles, developed by Sonic Team, published by Sega. We do not know what it's going to be called. What happened was the trailer showed this design, don't know what it was, but this design came up on the screen and then it said 2022, which suggests a brand new Sonic game in the mainline series is coming out next year for Nintendo Switch, PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. And that was pretty much it. So, great news for Sonic fans all round, because not only did they announce all this, but they also they're shoving the Werehog into Sonic Forces, if I'm not mistaken, which is just mental. Absolutely mental. But aside from that, I'm excited. I'm very excited. Sonic's 30th anniversary, for me, delivered much better than Mario's 35th anniversary. And you can be damn sure that Sega are not going to take down these games after 6 months, Nintendo. You know, the Sonic Origins collection, as far as I'm aware, is not going to be available temporarily. There's not going to be any forced... What's the word I'm looking for? Forced obsolescence. Or if that's the word I'm looking for, not forced. Do you know? They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that because they're not like that. You know, as arguably good or bad as the Sonic games have been in the last 20 years, at the very least, Sega do take care of the IP. They take care of the IP. I would dare say that Sonic is more beloved than Mario in that aspect. You know, I don't hate Mario. I like Mario games. I like them. They're enjoyable. And I guess I sort of enjoy some of the Sonic games that have come out. Particularly Sonic Generations. I don't have a lot of love for all Sonic games, but I appreciate the IP. I appreciate Sega keeping the IP alive. And actually caring about the fans that care about the IP as well. You know, they own their IP. They own the legacy of Sonic, and they take advantage of that. They're not going to Oh, I'm not going to get into a rant about this. I just think it's ridiculous that Sega or Nintendo did what they did in regards to the Mario 35th anniversary thing. I mean, why would you do that? Just keep it up. But Nintendo will Nintendo. But anyway, I'm excited about these IPs, products, projects, all this stuff that's coming out to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Sonic. I'm really happy about it. So I'm satisfied with what we got on this presentation, on this announcement. And with that said, I think I've talked about all there is to talk about. And I feel like I did more talking about non-gaming things than gaming things. And for that, I apologise. Because like I said, last week I didn't have that much to talk about. And this week I didn't really have that much to talk about either. All I really wanted to do was talk about the Sonic presentation. And I know it took me well over an hour to get there. But I'm happy I got the episode done. I'm happy I spoke about the things I did speak about. There were things in there that I really wanted to talk about anyway. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, and you want to hear more content, you know where to find me. You can find me on Spotify now. Just go on to Spotify and search GB Gaming or GB Gaming Podcast, and it should show up somewhere. These episodes also get put up on YouTube as well, and they also get put up on SoundCloud at some point. And that's about it then. So, yep. I just want to give a quick shout to updating. I just want to give a quick update on my YouTube channel in general. Not so much the channel, just the content that I'm supposed to be. I know I haven't uploaded a proper video in a long time. And believe me, I regret every single day that I haven't posted anything, but honestly, I just haven't had time. I just haven't had time. This is why I decided to take up doing the podcast. Not only because I like to waffle on and use that as a platform to do that, but it also gives me something to do in the small amount of time that I have to do it. So I'm happy I get to do that at least. I know the last review I did was 2 months ago. That was Road Rash 3D. I don't know what game I'm going to do next. I haven't thought about it yet, but I'll talk about it when I get a chance if I come up with something. But until then, if you enjoy anything that I do and you want to see more, then give me a follow, give me a like. It's up to yourself. I won't put pressure on you. I do all of this out of my own enjoyment, as you know. With that said, though, thanks very much for taking the time to listen. This has been Dave talking to you on GB Gaming, where video games come first. Thanks again, and I'll see you whenever I see you. Stay safe, and goodbye.